Okay, so we're just going to go over a quick little tutorial on how to shift colors. This is a very, very basic method here, and it doesn't work in necessarily all applications, but for this particular application where the color is pretty consistent all the way through and you don't have color contamination and shadows, this will get you where you need to go pretty easily. So let's go ahead and jump on in. So to start, I'm making a selection of the can by itself to create its own layer. And then we will go back and we'll name that can, and then we'll select the background layer, and we're going to name that reflection, and we're going to make a selection of the reflection down on the bottom. And then we will just get rid of everything around that. Now we have the can on one layer, reflection on the other, and ultimately we'll move that reflection down later on in another step. Okay, we're going to create a new layer and just label it background and fill it with black, put that at the very bottom. All right, now we're going to group the can and reflection together, name it can. All right, and then we'll put that in its own group so that we can easily keep all our colors together. And we'll name this yellow because this is going to be our first color shift that we're going to do. Okay, so next we're going to go to color range and select all the green areas of the can. So we need to just make sure we get all the midtones, all the highlights, and all those little bits there that are hiding. You see a little bits of black there, and there's some more other areas up in the highlights that are hiding. And go down and in the shadows down there and just get all those little bits of green that are hiding. And then just make sure everything is selected we want and nothing that we don't want. And then we'll hit OK. And there we have a nice selection of all our green. Now I'm going to create a just basic color layer here and just hit OK and then hide that because I don't need it at the moment just yet. And we're going to name that color. And then just drag that layer mask up to the top so that I can make adjustments in there without having to mask out every adjustment layer. Okay, so now I'm creating a new target color for the yellow that I want, and I'm basing this on the mid-tone yellow. So not the highlight or the shadow, but a nice mid-tone yellow. That's my target. So this is our swatch color. Notice I've got my saturation set at 100% and brightness at 80. Okay, and then we'll just name this folder swatches. Then I'm going to hide that so that I can see exactly where I want my swatch. And let's find a nice area where midtones are in the green. That looks nice. All right, so then we are just creating my swatch there. I'm going to go down and copy the number down there. There we go. And then we'll go down to our generic color fill layer that we did and just paste that in. And then I'm just changing that blend mode to color, saturation color. And then we are going to add an exposure layer so we can make sure that it's the right brightness. And then we're going to add a black and white layer to the whole thing. Now this way we can tell this, we can adjust the luminosity of the color without the saturation coming into play. It's easier to adjust brightness without color in there to trick your eyes. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We're going to change that to luminosity. And then we are going to go to our blend if and pull that underlying layer whites down just a little bit so that the whites from underneath come through a little bit more, makes it a little bit more believable looking. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So we're going to collapse that down and then we will rename that yellow. And then we are going to duplicate this. So duplicate group, and we're going to rename this. What color should we do next? Let's do light blue. Okay. All right, then we will open that up. And we're going to duplicate this swatch layer and name this light blue as well. And let's find a nice light blue. All right, there we are. That's a pretty nice light blue. Actually, I think that's a little bit more. There we go. That's the light blue I'm looking for. Okay, so we've got that light blue. Now I forgot to copy the numbers. We copy our number down there, and we apply it to our color layer down on the can. Hit OK. Boom. Nice. All right. Let's hide that. I don't think that's going to affect it, but let's just hide it anyways. Just rename that can. And then we need to turn our black and white layer back on just to make sure that we have the right shade of blue. Just reset our exposure there and then just go through and make adjustments, pull exposure up a little bit, our gamma, play around a little bit with it to where we try to get that underlying tone as close to our swatch as possible. All right. That's looking pretty good. Turn it off, take a look at it. That's a nice looking blue. And let's see, play around with the blend mode, see if what you like better, if luminosity looks better or heat color looks better. In this case, I think luminosity looks better. All right, so we'll collapse that down, and then we will duplicate this again and try another color. Duplicate group, and let's go for purple this time. And we'll just hide that light blue layer. This time we forgot to bring that reflection and that swatch down. So I'm just going to bring that down to make that swatch, that reflection look a little bit more believable, like it's actually standing on a bit of plexi. Okay, we're going to duplicate our swatch here and make a purple swatch. And let's hide that blue swatch and let's find a nice purple. Going up, up, up. Yeah, that's looking good. And once again, we need to copy that reference number down there and let's apply it to our color layer down here. Copy and paste. All right, black and white layer back on. Adjust our exposure to using exposure and gamma to bring it back in line with our swatch. And there we are. That's looking pretty good. It's a nice balancing act, trying not to get that center part of the can so dark that you can't see the text on there. So you want to make sure that you get it, target that swatch, but also you can still read the font. So there we go. That's looking good. Shadows and highlights and midtones all look really nice on that. All right, and that reflection's looking nice too. And there we go. All right, let's do one more example just to really drive the point home. Let's do a red can this time so we get a nice variety of color here. Okay, let's duplicate that swatch to red. And let's find a nice red tone. We'll just go straight all the way up to the top. Red, 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 red. Or maybe we'll try an orange. No, I think we'll go with red. Okay. Hit OK on that. Once again, let's copy our number down there. Copy, paste. Okay. There we go. And let's turn our black and white layer on. That's looking pretty good already. Just some slight adjustments here. Pulling down that exposure once again, trying to keep the text in the center of the can as readable as possible. There we go. That looks nice. All right. Now that is a pretty good. That looks pretty good. Now again, this doesn't work in all instances, but on a particular product like this, it looks fine. All right, let's group all the cans together in a master cans folder and stay organized here. Our swatches, we're just going to pull down below, make a duplicate of that, and I'm going to call this backgrounds because we're going to just play around a little bit now and just kind of match the backgrounds to the various color cans. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the layer masks on all of these because we don't need them. There we go. Now let's just hide those. All right, let's just start with our first one, the yellow, and we need to pull that reflection down to match so it doesn't look like it's standing out so much. That looks pretty good. All right, we can collapse that down. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to add some lighting effect to this to make it look a little bit more believable. Okay, let's add a little gradient to it. All right, add a little bit of fill light behind it. A little bit of a kind of a grayish. Sorry about that. Daughter came in and had an important announcement to make. All right, so jumping back in. So yeah, we are adding some lighting, some nice little fill light behind the can. And let's enlarge that a little bit. If you add dither to it, check the dither box so you don't get banding. And then we're going to change that blend mode to screen. And then we're going to add another gradient. And this is going to be for the foreground to separate a bit from the foreground to background. And we'll just add a little bit darker. Not quite a complete 50% gray, just a little bit darker than gray. And then let's change that one, even though it's going to transparency, it still needs to be white so you don't get any weird color. Add dither to prevent banding. Then we're going to change that blend mode, multiply or linear burn. Yeah, I think I like linear burn. Yeah, let's go with that. All right, and then we want to give it a bit of more of a definitive transition line. So let's try playing around with these sliders here just to create more of a line of where that background sweeps up. All right, that's looking pretty good. Okay. Yep, let's hit OK on that. Now we're going to create another gradient just to give it a little bit more at the top as well. That's a little bit on the harsh side. We're going to soften this up a lot more than the bottom one because we want it to just be nice and soft. Hit OK on that, and I'm going to reduce the opacity on this a little bit as well just to make it a little bit softer, but still has some nice drama to it. There. And now since this is all blend modes, like neutral blend modes and everything like that, we don't need to change the gradients anymore whenever we swap colors on the background. It's all just going to transition nicely. So when we go to blue, boom, that blue looks amazing. That makes that can pop nicely. Then we'll, oh yeah, let's bring that reflection down a bit. Let's see about our purple. How does that one look? Purple's looking pretty good. Yeah, it's looking good. And then we'll just finally just check that red one to see how the red looks. Yep. All right, that looks good. Yeah, so that is our basic color shifting for this type of can or this type of subject. Now, again, this doesn't work in all situations, but when you have a consistent color shift throughout your shadows and midtones and it's not contaminated by any other color in the picture, then this method works just fine. So yeah, there you go. Anyways, hope this was informative to you all. Okay, bye.